Hi, you're listening to Marcia Pally and conversations I'm having with people about the criteria we should use to design and implement our economic and political policies. What should be our basic framework for determining public policy? These conversations are based on ideas from a book of mine, Commonwealth and Covenant, Economics, Politics, and Theologies of Relationality, because we're looking specifically at relationality as this framework for policy. Relationality includes both the individual person and the relations and contexts that he or she is in. Relationality is developed in many of our philosophical traditions and also in several theological traditions. Whether you think theologies are the word of the divine or an illuminating metaphor, in both cases they offer us much about how the world and people work, and so about the policies that will lead to the greatest human flourishing. Please join us in this series of conversations. Commonwealth and Covenant was published by Erdman's Press in 2016. You can follow me at marciapally.com or search for me on Facebook and Twitter. So we're going to get started on our conversation about relationality in the Judaic tradition. So this again is the picture of distinction amid relation as it was developed and expressed in many aspects of the Judaic tradition. So the first one that I wanted to talk of is the extraordinary concept of covenant. Covenant as a relationship between person and God and among persons, at once and simultaneously. Relation between person and whatever makes everything. Right? Whatever makes everything that is in you for you to exist at all, the minimum that is in you, and also among persons. And the relationship between these two relationships. You've got a relationship between you and whatever makes everything. You have a relationship between you and your natural environment, things in the world, other persons. You have those two sets of relationships, and the relationship between those two. Covenant is a bond, first, among distinct beings. If you are not distinct, you cannot have a covenant. If you are a blob of jello, you cannot have a covenant because there's no distinction across which you can have a bond. So the first thing about covenant, although it sounds paradoxical, is difference. It's the very first thing about covenant. The second thing is that it is a bond between distinct beings. And what is the nature of the bond? The nature is reciprocal consideration, giving for the flourishing of the other. You need at least two beings to have a covenant. You can have many more, but you need at least two distinct beings. And it is a bond of reciprocal consideration, giving for the sake of the flourishing of the other. It contrasts with the notion of contract. In contract, you protect your interests. In covenant, you protect the relationship. It's easy to think of a covenant as a bond between equals, reciprocal relationship. Yeah? It's also easy to think of contractual relation between unequals. Someone with more power and less power, you make a deal. Usually the person with less power owes more to the person with the power. So it's easy to think of equal and contractual relationships with power differentials. One of the innovations of the Hebrew Bible concept of covenant is it is a relationship of reciprocal care among unequal parties. That the bond with God is a reciprocal relationship, although human beings are radically different from God, and we are certainly not equal or on the same plane or level. The bond of reciprocity between unequals. The next point that I'd like to discuss about the Hebrew Bible notion of covenant is that it is open to all humanity. The bond with God, the covenantal bond with God of reciprocal care, is the relationship of the reason for existence with everything that exists and all humanity. Stipulative aspects may appear. Stipulative acts are things, stipulations that you have to do. In the same way that stipulative aspects may appear in the bond of covenant between a parent and child. Well, there are things that the child has to do. Clean your room, do your homework, wash the dishes. There are things, stipulative features can be part of a covenantal relationship. But stipulations are never the motive or the goal, never the motive or the telos of a covenantal relation. In other words, you don't have children so that they clean up their rooms. It is possible to require of your children that they do certain things, but that's not the motive or the end goal of the covenantal relation. And the stipulations cannot be confused with the covenant itself. I want to talk a little bit more about the idea of reciprocity. That it is a bond of reciprocity. This follows in the Judaic tradition from the notion that humanity, not directly but analogously in God's image, may understand something of the workings of the world. We just had this discussion, right? When we were talking about that the ground of existence must be minimally in us to exist, and that we have some access to the nature of existence because we exist, and the ground for existence must minimally be in us. We do have access, some access, to the nature of existence, also to the world, which is also an expression of existence. And because we have something of the nature of existence, or poetically, something of God's image in us, we can understand something of the nature of the world, and therefore we can act reciprocally in our relationship with God and with our relationship with each other. One could say, how can that be? God is the reason for all existence. How can we have a reciprocal relationship with something that is so radically different and so much grander than any of our particular selves? How can that possibly be? And it can possibly be is because there's something of the ground of existence and the structure of existence in you in order to exist. And you are in the world of all things that exist, and you therefore have some access to the structure of existence. We are highlighting here the profound basic structure of existence of difference amid relation. We have some access to it. Therefore, we can act by taking that structure of existence into consideration. In our actions, we can base our conduct, our practices, our attitudes, our institutions on the knowledge that we are all different but in relation. And therefore we are expressing the nature of existence as we act. And we can act with this kind of regard for others because we are made that way. We are constructed that way. and therefore we can act reciprocally, not only that we are taken care of, but we can care for others. We can act reciprocally, covenantally. And the Hebraic innovation was that we can do this with each other and also with the reason for all existence, God. This is not a top-down relationship. It's a reciprocal relationship. Emmanuel Levinas had the very nice idea that reciprocity is also not just about our conduct, but reciprocity applies to the development of the covenant itself. That we, the universe, cosmos, is set up covenantally by whatever makes everything, but that covenant isn't finished. That the idea of covenant itself, the concept, is continually developing by contributions from everybody who contributes to it. Everybody who thinks about it is in the mode of co-creator, co-creating with the reason for all existence, God, is co-creating the idea of covenant. And Emmanuel Levinas says that without the contributions of everybody to covenant, we would know less of covenant. Our development of covenant itself comes from our ability to behave reciprocally. We are developing the concept itself as we continue to think about it. The next notion about covenant that I would like to discuss is that it is irrevocable and eternal. One of the nicest images of the irrevocability of covenant are two in the Hebrew Bible that I'm going to illustrate. One is the covenant with Noah after the flood. Whatever it is that makes everything did not make that covenant, or did not self-unfold our reciprocal covenantal relationship, thinking that human beings would now be perfect. But it is a covenant that is irrevocable with nonetheless. In the same way that a covenant between parent and child is in some sense irrevocable, even when the child gets into trouble, does terrible things, is rebellious, says, "Mommy, I hate you," the covenant continues nonetheless. The second example I would like to turn to is the wonderful, extraordinary image of the burning bush in the second book of Moses, the Exodus, where Moses comes upon a bush that is burning and not consumed by the fire, and experiences the presence of God, who says in the Hebrew, "Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh," which does not mean, as it is commonly translated, "I am as I am." Ehyeh is the future tense. I will be as I will be. It is a promise of the continuation of this bond of reciprocal care and responsibility. And we know that humanity violates it all the time. And we know that the Hebrew Bible and the Christian Bible are full of accounts of humanity violating the covenantal relations with God and with each other all the time, among persons all the time. And yet, the covenantal structure of the world is never extinguished, as the fire never extinguishes the burning bush. What does the image tell us? Or what can we learn or think about from the image? That the covenantal structure of the world, that we are distinct, but we are in permanent relation of reciprocal responsibility, that is never extinguished. And we violate it every day, and we violate it in small ways of lack of consideration for others. We violate it in very large ways, in horrible atrocities. But it doesn't change the structure of our existence. The structure of our existence is covenantal. We're distinct, and we are in profound relation of reciprocal care and responsibility. The final point that I would like to make before we break about the notion of covenant is how covenant is expressed through gift exchange. In gift exchange, the gift, which is often of very little value or importance in itself, is given to someone else, or between one group and another group. Not because it's valuable, but because it is an expression of the covenantal relationship, again, of difference. I'm me, you're you, I'm giving a gift to you. But, although I'm me and you're you, it is a recognition of our mutual care and responsibility. And the gift expresses this because the spirit of the donor, the spirit of the giver, goes with the gift. If not literally, then metaphorically, intentionally. The spirit of the giver goes with the gift. So the recipient, the receiver, has something of my intentionality, of my spirit, metaphorically. And that is the expression of the covenant. A very nice aspect of gift exchange societies is, if I give a gift to Moritz doesn't give me back a gift immediately. First of all, that would be extremely odd. That would feel like payment. You know, I give you, that wouldn't feel like a gift at all. But Moritz then gives to Christian. And sometime later, in an unpredictable circumstance, Christian gives to Julia, who then at some other unpredictable time, depending on circumstance and events, gives to Anna right around the table. And sometime, some gift will get back to me. But in the meanwhile, the point is not getting the gift back. And of course, it's never the same gift, right? The same gift is not given, right? Some other gift that expresses the covenantal bond from Julia to Angelica, Angelica to Heike to the gift that is given each time will be different. We give something that is appropriate to the recipient. And the point is not to get the gift back. The point is the network of covenantal relations that is formed and preserved. And what Marcel Mauss found is that gift exchange societies could maintain covenantal relations over extremely long generations and over very, very vast distances, thousands of miles, for example, among Pacific Islanders, could be maintained through this exchange of gifts, through networks of societies that expressed not the value of the gift itself, but expressed the covenantal relationship. So this picture of gift exchange is a picture, it's one of the pictures, of the covenantal nature of our relationship. And we maintain the relationship, right? That's the notion of covenant, protects the relationship. And gifts can be expressions. They aren't the covenant. They are expressions of the covenantal nature of relationship. So these are some of the basics of the notion of covenant. It begins with distinct beings. It's a bond between distinct beings for the flourishing of the other. Reciprocal consideration. It contrasts with contracts, which protect interests. Covenant protects relationship. The notion of covenant in the Hebrew Bible, the notion of the brit, is that it is, with God, it is a reciprocal relationship between unequals. It's a kind of philosophical innovation. It is open to all. Although stipulations may appear, stipulations are never the motive or the goal of covenant. We don't have children so that they clean up their rooms.
It's also the other way around. Not only do because you keep it. I just want to point out also the parents fail in the covenant, not only the children. Because I don't want to make this impression that the children are always the ones who fail. Because more often the covenant goes also on the other direction with incredibly fallible parents.
Yeah, yeah. It's the recognition that parents are people too. Yeah, it's the recognition that people in covenantal relationships mess up, and I think it's very instructive. Again, if you take it as the word of God or you take it as an illuminating metaphor, it's very instructive that God gets angry, God loses his temper, and occasionally human beings of wisdom have to say, you're not behaving covenantally. It's a very important lesson for us to learn. And in the human realm, right, parents are people too. They mess up. They violate the covenantal bond. Spouses mess up. They violate the covenantal bond. I suppose the important takeaway there is, how do you work back from that? How do you work back into covenant? And in the examples that I just cited from the Hebrew Bible, where God loses his temper, there is a way to work back. God backs down.
And you cited this, there's a really nice passage from Isaiah, as you said, for a brief moment I abandoned you, says God, I'm sorry, but I looked away.
Yeah.
But I will be there now, so
yeah.
It's very, very beautiful.
Why don't you read that? Go ahead, read that.
It's from Isaiah 54, 7-10. It says, "For a brief moment I abandoned you, but with deep compassion I will bring you back. In a surge of anger I hid my face from you for a moment, but with everlasting kindness I will have compassion on you. Though the mountains be shaken and the hills be removed, yet my unfailing love for you will not be shaken, nor my covenant of peace be removed."
It's a very intimate picture of the relationship between humanity and God. It's not a standoffish picture. It's a very, we're in this together picture. Okay? And with that lovely note and lovely quote from Isaiah, why don't we take a break?